Title. It's in the title of the show, so that's a big deal.
Yeah.
That pretty much, if you're one of the 3 stories mentioned in the title, it's a tease in and of itself.
I think myself and Mr. Takei are very happy.
I'm glad, but we can even talk about it some more. So guys, hope there are a lot of Star Trek fans out there, but you don't even need to be a Star Trek fan. You just need to be a fan of Pop Culture Society. You might not even know him from Star Trek. You might only follow his Facebook posts.
Well, some people know him now more as an advocate for same-sex marriage and marriage
Right.
equality than from Star Trek.
And just because of his Facebook presence in general, he
and
would always post like these social media jokes and things like that.
And he's got, I think, almost over 1.5 million followers on Twitter. So
That's a
George
lot.
Takei he's a very popular guy.
Yeah.
He posts witty stuff all the time.
That's what I'm
He's got a humongous fan base out there.
Let's just pull up his Facebook right now.
You may be thinking, who are these? Why are we talking to them?
Yeah.
Why are they even relevant in Phoenix? Why is a Phoenix TV station talking to them? So here's the connection. George Takei's partner, his husband, they got married.
Right.
He's from Arizona. He's from Phoenix. His family lived in the White Mountain area in Sholo, which is northern Arizona, for a long time. And so they have been coming to Phoenix and to the White Mountains, to their cabin, for decades now. So they come into town and they stay at one of the local hotels for like a day or two just to relax, and they drive up to the White Mountains. And we've talked to them in the past, and we knew they were coming to town. And so we said, hey, you guys want to talk to us about the Supreme Court ruling? And the Takei said, let's do it.
That's so awesome. This is you can follow him on social media.
And he has a fascinating past. He's 78 now. Now, during World War II, he was part of the Japanese American population that was interned in internment camps across the country. And he grew up in California, and he was taken, I think he mentioned, to Arkansas. And so, his family basically lost everything. And then when the war is over and they were released, he, got into acting. He grew up. His whole life came to basically being in Star Trek.
Right.
And that was the pinnacle of his career. And while he was in Star Trek, this is in the early 80s, that's when he met his now husband 30 years ago. And they kept their relationship a secret up until about 10 years ago. People didn't know. I mean, of course, friends knew and stuff like that, but it wasn't public. It wasn't out in the open.
That we all kind of know.
Yeah,
now.
so now it's not like what it is now. And so 10 years ago, I asked him when I talked to him today, I said, what was the moment where you guys said, okay, let's do this?
Yeah.
And George Takei said, I couldn't do this when my career was in full swing, because if I had come out and done this and been an advocate for marriage equality or whatever the issue was at the time, which was back in the 70s and 80s.
Right.
It was more about just equal treatment than marriage equality back then.
Right.
So
just no discrimination.
Yes, exactly. So he said if I had done that back then, my career would be over. I would not have a career, and I cared too much about my career, and I wanted to have a career, and I loved acting, and I loved what I was doing. I didn't want to ruin it. And so then 10 years ago, he was 68. And his career was basically, not really, Star Trek wasn't a big deal in 2005.
Right.
And so he said, let's do it. And at that moment when he decided to do it, it was because California's legislature back in 2005 had passed a bill legalizing same-sex marriage. And Arnold Schwarzenegger was the governor back then. And he vetoed the bill. And George Takei was pissed off. He was so upset. And so that's when they came out publicly and started this fight. And since then, he's just been a public face of everything. So it was.
And using social media as a tool to spread that awareness, but then also throw out jokes. I mean, just this little meme that he posted.
He posts these jokes all the time.
USB safety. I mean, we all understand that. At least on a PC, it's like, why?
His posts are hilarious. His posts are hilarious.
I want to acknowledge a couple comments before we go to the full interview.
Sure.
You sat with them for almost 20 minutes.
Yeah, it was great.
Really cool. I remember Carrie, I think in the last year, she had done a sit-down interview with George Takei about his experience in the internment camp, which was a different angle entirely.
He told me that he has a memory of his family and this soldiers basically knocking on their door, telling them it's time to go, and his mom and family walking out
That's crazy.
in tears with their bags and leaving.
Wow.
It was a great interview. I mean, these two have, when you think about being the public face of something that's taken this long. I mean, they've
Right.
put a lot on the line, and it's worked out for them for the best. Because they've actually, he was saying that he had a successful acting career, but now his career's taken such a turn. He's almost even more successful now
As just
than
a
he
public
was. Yeah,
figure.
he says he's working more now, doing different projects than he almost was when he was doing Star
And
Trek.
that was a huge risk for him to
Absolutely.
take that step, to be willing to be open and talk about these things, because I think probably for someone that's
And at the time,
been
he said at the time it was like his career was kind of in its waning days. And it was
Yeah.
winding down. He was 68, so he's like basically retirement age.
Right.
And he said, you know what, let's just do it. What do I have to lose? And it worked out. And now they have a documentary that was extremely popular. And obviously he has a social media presence, and he still does work, acting work.
What are the viewers saying? Trek fan right here, Zero Gummy. Leo loves Star Trek. I would love to meet him, Zero Gummy says. I wanted to meet Leonard. Was so sad when he passed away. Yeah, a lot of people really big fans. So I guess they'd probably be very interested in hearing what the two have
And
to say.
I will say too, like, when you talk to people, whether it's a politician or a celebrity, sometimes you get the sense that, they're just doing it
Because they
because
have
they
to.
have to, because
Sure.
it's part of the business, it's part of what they need to do. With these two, I did not get that feeling at all. There was a great conversation. They were open to talk about whatever they wanted, whatever you wanted to talk about, and it was very, very, it was awesome.
I love the way it ended, by the way. I don't want to give it away. I just saw it. I was like, that is so cute.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. That must have been so fun.
It was awesome.
As
It was
opposed to the
really
animal
fun.
abuse
Yeah,
stories.
and it's death and destruction. It was great.
Right.
It was really fun.
All right.
So,
well,
and
let's
thank Carrie Lake for
setting
setting
this
it up. Yeah, and knowing when they're in town.
Yeah. Well, let's listen in.
Enjoy.
Thank you, Andrew.
The ruling. What was that like getting that?
Is there a question? We're overjoyed, we're proud, and we feel fully American. When we pledge allegiance to the flag now, we can pledge allegiance to the United States of America, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Brad, same feelings?
Absolutely. I was born in Phoenix, so Arizona is my state, and I'm really proud that the state that Barry Goldwater is from last October said marriage equality is a right for all citizens of Arizona. But now, by it being extended on a national basis, I think it just makes the American family more secure, because it means that the potential for two people that love each other, two men, two women, opposite sex couples, they can have all the rights and privileges of marriage now, where no matter where you live in the United States. And it just makes our country more friendly to the American family. I think it's going to make the American family stronger.
Let's go back.
However, there's still family discussions, to put it nicely, between the generations. Your congressman, Solomon, is it?
Salmon, I think.
Salmon.
Mark Salmon, I think.
In his family, they're having discussions. The son is gay. The father believes in what they call traditional marriage, man and a woman. But that's why we're doing what we're doing. We want to make everybody not have to have those family discussions. And we're doing it really for the straight young couples of today, because they're going to be making the gay babies of tomorrow. And they won't have to have those discussions, because society would have, because Congressman Solomon?
Salmon.
Oh, the fish.
Just start over. Salmon.
Because Congressman Salmon has that, is wedded to that belief, then there's that family tension. We are trying to get him to see, but some of the older people will not be able to see that. But the millennial generation, 80% now support equality in marriage for everybody, including LGBT people. And the most important love is between parents' love for their child and the child's love for that parent. And it's this issue that brings that tension to families. We want to eliminate that by that generation, the parent generation that's coming, not have that problem. That the most natural thing, parental love to the child, will be what's operative, and not these political tensions that cause family problems.
I'm always not amused, but I find it ironic that some of the conservative wing will say that they're for traditional marriage, and then I think of the leaders of that wing, such as Donald Trump, who's on his third marriage, or Rush Limbaugh, who's on his fourth marriage. They both say that they're for traditional marriage. George and I are on our first marriage. We've been together nearly 30 years. We've been legally married in California for 6 years, going on 7 years. And yet, George and I, we had one of the most stable marital relationships of anybody I know with same sex. And then the opposite sex couples are saying, oh no, we got to fight for traditional marriage. It's so important. It's what our culture is all about.
Why are they having so many problems? Remarrying, divorcing, remarrying. You know, marriage is love. Two people who commit to each other, who care for each other, and as they used to say, until death do us part. That's what a marriage is.
Don't you think they're losing that battle now, though?
Well, all I know is that I'm wearing my wedding band right now. George and I, we put this on almost 8 years ago. We got it here in Arizona at the Heard Museum. It's designed by a Navajo Indian. It represents our love of the state of Arizona. We wear this wherever we are on the planet Earth. And I think ultimately, you know, this ring does symbolize that the times they are changing, that, you know, open-minded, fair-minded Americans are starting to get with the plan. Marriage equality is the new normal in our country, and it's sort of like everybody take a deep breath, get rid of all this political rhetoric, the narrow-minded vision. Think of one of the great fathers of Arizona, Barry Goldwater, who was, in his later years, was fully supportive of LGBT equality. He was a conservative. Arizona is a state of, you know, libertarian influences of live and let live. Well, we want to live in Arizona. We want to make Arizona a better state. We want to love openly and not have to feel ashamed or shamed to be a gay person. We're part of the community, and get over it.
Here's another example with our marriage. You know, when we got married, the big comment from the press and pundits and so forth was the fact that we were two men in love getting married. But we were also entering into an interracial marriage. And there was no comment on that. It was the most, you know, natural. Those guys loved each other. 50 years ago, we had Loving versus Virginia. That was a big hoo-ha. There was a whole debate and anxiety and angst over that. 50 years, and we were barely conscious of that fact. You know, so we will change. That's predicted because of the interracial fact in our marriage. So Congressman Salmon will eventually either come to love his son and want happiness for his son, or he'll have to die off, and there'll be that better world waiting for us.
Let's go back 30 years ago. 1985, I'm assuming, is when you met. That's 30 years.
Yeah.
Would you ever envision you guys being so out and vocal 30 years ago?
No. The irony about George Takei is 10 years ago he was that guy from Star Trek. Now, talking to you, he's George Takei, the activist, political animal. George was in the closet and not talking about the fact that he's gay until 10 years ago.
Because I loved my career. I passionately loved acting. And I would not have been able to have a career if I were out. That's how society has changed. See, I personify the change in our society. I had to be closeted in order to have a career. And because that career amplified my voice, when I decided that, all right, I'm prepared for my career to wane, I came out. The opposite happened. When I came out as a gay man with a partner, I started working more. My career blossomed. Mm-hmm. And so society is changing. And I hope that good Congressman Salmon will also change and come to love and love his son and want his son to have the love of his life.
Was there a moment when you thought to yourselves, it's time to step up, it's time to put ourselves out there and fight this fight?
2005.
Yeah, I think there were some situations in California going on politically, and George said I have to have my voice heard. But really what happened is shortly after 2005, George went on the Howard Stern radio show and started finding a whole new audience of young people that thought George was hip and cool, and the fact that he was openly gay, people thought that was interesting about him, and I think George just never looked back.
Well, what started that discussion between us was something that had our blood boiling. Both houses of the California legislature, the Senate and the Assembly, passed a landmark bill, marriage equality. This is in 2005. LGBT people could get married. That bill passed the legislature and went to the governor's desk for his signature. And with the governor's signature, it would become the law of the state. The governor then was Arnold Schwarzenegger. He campaigned by saying, I'm from Hollywood, I've worked with the gays and lesbians, some of my best friends are gays and lesbians. So on that political rhetoric, many people voted for him. But when the bill landed on his desk, he showed his true colors. He vetoed it. He was an arch-conservative Republican, and that got us angry. The people's representative voted for marriage equality, and one man vetoed it, despite the fact that he campaigned saying, gays and lesbians are my friends. And that got us to discussing what I should do. And by that time, I was 68. And I said, well, maybe it's time. I'm going to come out. And I spoke to the press for the first time, and I blasted Arnold Schwarzenegger's veto.
And it seemed to work. It all worked out for the best.
Yeah.
Well, Arnold is still not there.
Though, you're so worried about the repercussions. I mean, here you are now, doing great.
Yeah, we really find it's a generational divide because, you know, George and I are mature people. It's the millennials, the younger people that are just sort of saying, what's this big hoo-ha going on right now? You know, marriage equality is just so much more accepted and understood in the younger generation. And George is sort of, as an older American, he's fighting the fight, but his perspective is from...
personal.
Yeah.
Well, look at 30 years, how things have changed.
Yeah.
Let's take like a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old today.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think it's going to be like for them 10, 15 years down the line? Is this even going to be an issue?
At our wedding, my nephew brought his kids with him. We're Uncle George and Uncle Brad to his kids. It's the most natural thing. So, you know, what's all this hoo-ha about? Why are people so excited and upset? I saw Uncle George and Uncle Brad get married. It was a wedding.
When you reflect on your life, you know, internment camps, growing up, obviously success in Hollywood, and now this, where does this stack up, this fight, this battle?
Our democracy is a dynamic democracy. The arc of our democracy has been amazing. When this nation was founded on these shining ideals, you know, all men are created equal, they meant that literally. Women had no rights. They couldn't vote. They couldn't own property. They didn't have rights over their own children. But because determined women and fair-minded men challenged and debated and campaigned, that we have now equality for women. All men are created equal, so our forefathers said. But they owned other human beings as slaves. But again, because of all that effort to get equality, we have an African American as the president of the United States. Our democracy is not written, carved in stone. It's a living document. Our Constitution is a living document, and the arc has proven that to be true. Our history is one of expanding equality and justice to more and more people. And now we're doing it for literally members of our own family. our sons and daughters, our brothers and sisters, because we are literally members of the family, blood kin, and we're now trying to get that to be recognized in fact.
Brad, do you think this will even be an issue 10 years down the line? Are opinions with young people changing so much that this isn't even going to be, it's just going to be a normal thing?
Just like the interracial thing. That's not a big thing anymore.
Yeah. Well, George and I travel frequently all over the country, and we find that people, they think of George as Uncle George. Sometimes I'm called Uncle Brad, and because George's social media is so popular. And people that interact with George and me, they like us for our personalities and our social advocacy. But the fact that we're openly gay Americans doesn't really come up in conversation that much, because people just like us for who we are, and they're fans of George for his positions he takes. So we're almost at that point where we're the post-gay, and
You're over it.
Yeah, but I understand there's still pockets of the country where the establishment has these sound bites of anti-gay that I think they say them unthinkingly, because when you start thinking about it, it's about their people in their family. Everybody has a gay person in their family somewhere that's might not be aware of. So we're really talking for all Americans when we say that marriage equality will make our society a better place. It is.
Do you ever wish you would have come out and fought for this sooner, before 2005?
Well, that's a journalistic question, because we had to deal with the realities of that time. When I was in my teens, my heartthrob, my crush, was a blonde, good-looking actor named Tab Hunter. I don't know whether you recognize Tab Hunter.
I do know the name, yeah.
That name. Every other movie coming from Warner Brothers Studio was starring Tab Hunter. He was a big, popular box office heartthrob. Mine as well as for the females. And then one of the scandal sheets exposed him as gay, and his career faded. That was an object lesson for me. If I were out, I would not have a career. I have enough going against me as an Asian American, and I couldn't add to it. I wanted to get cast, and so I remained closeted for most of my adult life.
Because you hear those stories about Hollywood. You hear them, you read about them, but you say it absolutely is true.
Absolutely.
Do you think it's different now?
Well, for most actors, it is different. But those actors that are action heroes, the big brawny types, for them it's still a factor to consider. There are closeted action hero movie stars that cannot come out with.
That it would have an impact. No
It
question.
would. Who would have thunk professional football players, Olympic decathlon gold medal winners, would come out as who they really are? But that's happening. And I think society is going to be better. Because, diversity is the source of our strength. America is stronger because of the diversity of ideas, diversity of talents, diversity of people with different perspective culturally, coming together. America is better because of that diversity. And when we find diversity in our own family, some people are discombobulated, to use a kinder word. And when they relax and come to understand that that's the way their child or their brother is, or their sister, then not only will their lives be better, it will be stronger and healthier.
Last question for you guys. You're up to Sholo, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
This is your first stop. Come in
Yep.
a few days here and then up to Sholo.
Yep.
What's the reception like when you go to Sholo? Obviously, people know you guys.
Oh, we're having a party at our cabin for, about 10 people tomorrow night. And they're Arizonans. I mean, they're White Mountain people. MJ is a cowboy. He always wears that hat and the shirt and the boots, leathery, and they join us.
Yeah, we're going to the annual 4th of July parade on the Deuce of Clubs. this weekend to see the fireworks at Show High School, just to enjoy ourselves in the fresh air of the White Mountains. And we've been going up there for all the 30 years that we've been together. We own real estate up there.
His mother was there.
My relatives up there, so it's part of our community, and we feel like part of the community up there.
We've got friends up there, and
Yeah.
we're bringing our Los Angeles friends up too for the holidays.
And how do they like it?
Oh, they love it up
But
there.
they're flying in. They don't like the long drive.
Yeah.
Of course. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you. Nice
Really
talking to you.
appreciate it. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, live long and prosper, and may the force be with you.